Okay, good afternoon traders. Hope you can all hear me loud and clear. We got a few on at the moment, so a few more coming through slowly. Alrighty. Just let me know if you're having issues with anything. If it's coming through loud and clear, just give me a yell. Hope you had a great weekend this weekend and didn't get up to too much mischief. I know I was kept a bit busy. We're unloading the garage, just trying to clear out the garage. Just going to move probably in a couple of months, bought a place, so we're waiting for settlement, and then we head out there. So we're going to put a few things onto eBay or whatever you call it. So we're going to try to sell a few of these things that have been sitting in the garage for the last few years. So it's been a bit busy. So getting a bit tired, might look a bit weather worn today. Apart from that, it was actually a good weekend. It was a nice sunny day yesterday, so got out for a bit of a bike ride. Anyway, enough of me. Let's get stuck into it now. We've got a few more people coming on now. Just got to give it a bit of time, guys. We've had the alerts, the push notifications, a tad slow today. I think they're a bit either it's me slow hitting the button or they're slow to get through. So for anyone that's new, I know we go over this each time, but if you can join us on Twitter, in the top left-hand corner, you'll see our Twitter site there. Facebook, if you link into us there, top right-hand corner. And the bottom right is to subscribe to us on YouTube. That way, any time we do go live with anything at all, any presentation or FX or anything like that, you'll see that pop up too, just to say we're going live on a stream or we've posted something. So just keep up to date with us there. Like I said before, if you've got any questions on anything at all that you might be having trouble with and you don't want to ask in the stream, or you're watching this later on and there's something that perked your interest, just send us through an email to support@tradesetup.com.au, and yeah, then we'll get back to you. Otherwise, if it's a good little topic, we can always, if you don't mind, we can always put it up for a bit of a chat anytime, one of the times during the streams anyway, because I think there's a lot of things that people ask that are interesting across the board, I think, to everyone. It's worth, definitely worth talking about. So any question you may have, just use the email. Well, let's get going now. I'll just get up the markets. Just click one little thing first. Let's get the markets up here. All right. So I'm back on board. Still looking for a bit of a haircut, so sorry about that. The do's not looking too good at the moment. Now the markets today, they've popped up 38 points at the moment in the ASX, so that's a bit, it's caught me a bit offside. I wasn't expecting that much strength today, considering the US was a bit mixed on Friday night. We had, I think the Dow was up slightly, but the broader index on the S&P was actually down a bit. Europe wasn't too bad, but again, it's probably more of that US dollar. The US dollar dropped off again because there's probably less likelihood that they're going to raise rates in December. Maybe not at all this year. I think they're caught offside a bit by the weakness in jobs or the weakness inflationary data that's coming through the US. They were expecting a bit stronger and then potentially raising rates this year, but it's not happening. So also, I think on Friday night they had really just focusing a bit on was it Hurricane Irma. So that kept things a bit quieter. Over the weekend, I haven't caught up to date with what's happened as of late, but I think it's the strongest one in history, if I'm correct. If anyone can correct me, go ahead. But I think it's the strongest, and it's just going to hit Florida. So again, that's going to affect oil production, and then on oil, that's why oil took a bit of a nosedive. I think it was down 3% or so on Friday night. So it's the same thing that happened with the previous hurricane. Yeah, but it sort of kept people a bit quieter, I think, and then there was, I think, another missile test in North Korea. They've got their, I think it's the 68th or 67th birthday, 69th birthday or celebration. So talk about shooting off a few rockets. They're not firecrackers, those things, so that's interesting. But yeah, I think there was a bit of, what's going to happen there? Where's that going to lead? Is that still a bit of argy-bargy between the US and North Korea? What's happening there? So whether that didn't play out over the weekend, I don't quite know. I was just reading older news anyway. So, but yeah, we popped up on the open, so quite strong. Still ticking, grinding our way higher. Let's just look at the ASX now. XJO. you can see, I mean, I'm still seeing weakness in that. I don't think there's much way around it. You can still see, you know, that double top through at 58. Potentially this lower high at 57.30. We're just bouncing up to here, but it really hasn't broken any trend. We may hold up here and then, you know, down she goes towards this afternoon. We'll have to see how that one goes. It's again, we've got this long range sort of chopping us through here. Was it say 56.50 zone and up towards 58 or even higher than that? You know, push down, lower lows, lower highs, pop back up here, and then we just got choppy since then. That was back in, was it June? So the last few months have been a tough one to trade. You know, really choppy, and it's only now that I'm really seeing. I thought we are going to pop up here. You can see this price structure through here. We're starting to hold a bit of a washout here and hold some higher lows. I really thought we were going to pop up through 58, and then you got this big red candle, which just it really did throw a spanner in the works, for me anyway. And then when you add on top of that, this push up, this washout of 58, and then you got this little lower high, this candle just in here, followed by this, you know, this rollover. It looks like it's getting really heavy at the moment, but I mean, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. We just have to wait and see and just sort of position ourselves. We've got a few shorts on, so we're sort of the portfolio, what we've got at the moment, we've got a couple of shorts. We just took those off, so we've done all right on those. Got ANZ short, which actually kicked up today, which is a bit of a bummer. Still well below our stop, but that was showing some good weakness on Friday with that red candle on Friday, and we got today, it's just popped up, so it's reversed. What else have we got? I think that's probably about it, but we sort of haven't got anything major open at the moment, just because if it does get a bit of negativity there, we want to just keep an eye on some potential short positions anyway. I don't know, what has everyone else got running? Got some shorts on or longs, or it's sort of easing off a bit on the long side? There's still some good setups, but what I'm finding in a lot of them, well, probably here's Can Group as a bit of an example. Let me just get that. And what we're sort of finding is that you're getting these good setups. It's had a good run up, for instance, and then potential they're starting to set up, but it's on the high side of a move. Maybe not the tail end of a move, not particularly that Can, but there's been a few that are starting to set up. You look at it on the daily, it looks okay. You look at it on the weekly, and they've had a good run. So there is that potential if you jump in. The daily looks good, looks like a buy, and then they roll over because, you know, if this ASX does get hit, I mean, if it does go up, you just got to think, there's a lot of these, you know, a lot of these shares that have actually moved quite a bit. How much have they got to go? Now that's what I'm sort of seeing across the board at the moment. Nothing to say why you shouldn't take some long setups, because anything could happen. You just got to be wary and just make sure you know exactly where your risk is and what you are risking in any one trade. Long CBA, what's that actually doing? Yeah, it's had a good sell-off, and that's, yeah, look at that move down, contraction back up, another solid move down on that. What's the weekly? And that's, well, going long in there is probably not such a bad thing, but obviously I'd be trade a bit different, but just waiting for that setup there. But it's had a good sort of push down, and it's in context to this overall move up. This could be a nice little zone on CBA. I think Westpac, and look, at the moment, I mean, they're showing some weakness. That NAB actually is starting to pop up. It may have that little correction here, maybe continue up, build a lower high. Don't know from here, but a bit of strength in the old banks today. Which, like I said, I'm a bit surprised on that, but we'll see. Short term, great. Yeah, so we'll just have to see how it goes. There's nothing too concerning just yet. That's the Dow here. It's got the potential to push through. If you can see, just push through that low, and then the Dow may be rolling over, start attacking that 21,600 zone, have a deeper correction. You might get a sudden sell-off from there, but we might get a lot of choppiness through here, just holding some lower highs on the Dow even. The S&P's the other one that, oh, look, that could easily just roll over down through 24.50. Then you've got this major lower high, start attacking towards 24.20. And that's a decent sort of a sell-off, so that could drag us down as well. But if they hold up, we are getting potentially at the tail end, like we've spoken about before, the tail end of that move up. FTSE, I don't know where the FTSE is looking at now. Yeah, that's struggling a bit there. Still holding up above that 73, but nothing's confirmed either way for me. I mean, this could be a lower high with a little washout of 74.50, and then we roll straight down and through 7,300. Or, this little washout of 73 could lead to this being a high low, but you still haven't got confirmation that's a confirmed high low just yet on the FTSE, and take out 74.50 and start attacking up towards those highs. So there's a few little things. Everyone seems to be in a bit of a holding pattern. And in Europe, well, this is the DAX here. That's had that good sort of correction lower. That's probably expected. This could easily pop up, build a major lower high, and then correct on that secondary leg lower, and then they sort of all fall into line. The Dow, if that's the case, they're sort of all of that zone where they're teetering a bit for me, for my liking, and that's to think really that's to me to believe that there's going to be any serious strength in the XJO. I mean, even after today, there's nothing there that's confirmed for me. This negative price action is still completely holding until we get up through this little high at 57.34, 35. We could just wash it out and then roll over from here. But for me, that's still a lower high, and that lower high is going to lead to potentially just push down through 56.50. Could be wrong. I'll have to see. You've got the MA starting to roll over as well, starting to put a pressure to the downside. So there's a few factors that adding together, starting to look a bit weak. Now let's get on to where we're at. What else we got? There's a few starting to pick up. This is BNO. We've had this a while when it kicked up through 46, popped up, thought it was a legend there, then started backing off for a while and come all the way back down to say 45, and we started lifting off that again. So entries at 46 on this one. That structure is looking great. I mean, that weekly structure looks really good. It might be easier getting this somewhere else. Just get this along here. Let me just 1 second there, guys. BNO, where are we? Here we go. Yeah, I like that weekly structure. You can see this push down. It's popped up. That could be a lower high, which it was, and it's pushed down and built that high low around 31 mark. It's just starting to push up now, and look, we just got that pop through 50 a few weeks ago, and we've had that pullback down to 45. That for me could easily lead to a push up through 50. We'll just wait and see. But I like that. I think we're starting to head back up again. We've had this, this serious move up. So that's showing some really good signs of strength. And you can see that's happened previously as well. A couple of good days up, and then we've had some choppiness and then another leg up. Some choppiness, a lot of choppiness through here, but that leg up was a lot stronger. We come into that sort of resistance zone, pull back. That led us to breaking through that 50 zone. And then you got 1, 2 legs down, so there's a good chance that we can hold. If we start holding another high low, even around pull back to 47 and build, that could really power on. I'd rather see that just take off from here, maybe chop around here a bit, then go, but that could even just plow through 50, which would be great. What else we got here? DCN. So the gold that backed off the other day and just sort of stopped. We've got Newcresters on the gold side as well for us. That's backed off from the highs, but you probably would have expected that. Just considering what it's done, it's pushed up off these lows, sort of uncorrected low, high up to 22.25, pull back. We got in here, and it sort of had this move up from 21.25 up to 23.75. So a good little leg up too. Bit of contraction low. We could be seeing just a prime area where it could build a high low. If not, it's just going to turn around and roll over from there. But I think that weekly chart, that's the key for this one. You got this high low here at say 1958, yeah, about 1950 thereabouts. 1940 through here, that higher low holding up, which it just blew through this high at 22. That looks really nice for me, especially after this strong move down. We got this good leg up, so that's showing some good weakness. Then it was pretty much negated by that nice strong move up to 25. And you think if the bears were going to take control, they would have pushed it down at least down to 16. Couldn't do that. The bulls started stepping in a bit higher, so this is looking really good on the weekly basis. Just keep an eye on that. So that's your goldies. We've got ORE. That's kicking on. That's really nice. We're really looking up towards that, high 4s to 5. And you'll see where we got that. Yeah, that's actually very similar to Newcrest. I think this leg up here, if you can just sort of measure that leg out. Actually, just do that. I just want to see if it works on this. No, I don't want that, do I? Let's put it somewhere else. What's everyone else got? Is everyone sort of fully loaded a bit, or bearish, bullish? I know we've spoken about this before. There's a few bears out there, but it's always good to have something. I mean, I was speaking to someone about this on the weekend. If you got some stocks that are pointing out and they look like they're good quality setups, even though the market looks like it's teetering and could roll over, it's still worthwhile, but it's probably not. Don't load to the hilt, obviously. Well, I don't like to load to the hilt. I'd rather, you can still take it. They can still play out quite nice. And we've found that, say, this one, for instance, quality setup just led to a good rally. So it's still worthwhile taking rather than just sitting on your hands and waiting for this rollover. I mean, the rollover you're probably going to be right, but when are you going to be right? And that's the key to it. The key to your trading, you've got to trade what you see. And if you're trying to guess this rollover, you can turn around and say 6 months I was right, but hey, I've left a lot on the table as it kept going up. The market, like in the US, probably a few months ago, quite a few months ago now, we were looking like it was getting a bit extended. We know that people started shorting quite a bit of it. And we spoke about this, at that time as well. The sellers really stacked up, and the retail traders trying to pick the top, and they just kept squeezing them out. Now, if you were looking for the same type of thing, not jumping in and selling the market, but just waiting for a rollover, you've potentially missed, 4, 5, 6 months of a very strong rally on the S&P or in the US. It's probably a better example than here because we've done nothing, but you've missed out on that just by trying to guess and not trading your quality setups. Now, it's always key, I think, just to trade what you see. And just bear in mind, I think it's more on the risk side of things, because all we really are is risk managers. More on the risk side of things to look at the overall market. What are we doing on the XJO? Are we looking like we're rolling over? Okay, if we are, we're looking like we're rolling over like now, for instance. It's just a matter of, keeping that in mind. And if you do buy and you've got some really good setups, then off they go. But you are cautious on the risk side of things rather than staying out to be more. That's very risk averse, really. No, as Wayne will jump into those in a sec. So Davin's put up a nice little comment there. Markets move in the path of least resistance. Yeah, more pain to the majority. So when we're talking to a lot of people, when we see that there's a potential for a short squeeze, meaning that there's a lot of sellers that are built up. So that we always say it's fuel for a move higher, and that's what's going to cause a bit of pain. There's going to be quite a few people stacked up. They're going to feel quite a bit of pain if it moves against them. But it's a funny way to think. That's the path of least resistance, because it's harder to push down if there's a lot of people that have already sold the market. You've got to get more people from the sidelines to keep coming in, to keep pushing it down. So if you know that you're in a market that's quite extended, either up or down, who else is going to be sitting on the sidelines ready to come in that market and help you out by pushing the market up or down in your favour? If not, there's already a lot of fuel in the market ready to come back out again. And that, if you're looking for a nice quality setup like what we were saying just on the S&P previously, a lot of people loaded up short trying to pick the top. We know that the path of least resistance is going to be up, because if they all have to bail, if we get a nice quality setup and it's forcing these people back out again, you're sort of in the right area, because that could really jam high, which it did. It really kicked on strong. So it's good just to take note, and you can see that on the in the markets. You can sort of see which way they could be built up. So I mean, for instance here, probably not the best of setups, but you know that there's going to be a few people. Let's just draw that. Shorting it in here, and potentially it's come back up here. They've shorted it through here, and people who may have shorted a bit late, it's popped up, feeling a bit of heat, but then it's come back down. And then at that stage, down here, they're feeling quite good about themselves. But if this was, a different market, if we're talking in the way of sellers starting to build up, probably popped up here, then you've got another bit where if you've sold it here and you think it's going down, you've missed this opportunity, potentially missed this opportunity, or you got squeezed out, you closed it out for a loss. You've had a third nibble at it, and then it started popping higher. So there could be a lot of sellers built up here to start dragging them back out of the market, and they've got to buy it back and push the market higher. It's probably, you'll see it more common in the futures and the currencies, but it's definitely just something to keep in mind. I don't even know why I got this chart up, to be honest. I think it's just a good little chart to look at. Does anyone remind me why I was getting this up? But anyway, this is, let's just go over. I guess this is ORE. We've done quite nicely. I think we're trying to measure. That's probably it. So what we're just looking at is where this could go to. If you look at it on the weekly, if we've got that leg up here, it's actually probably a bit tart. We could be potentially just extend that up. If it's equal and opposite, it's going to take you roughly up to these highs around 460. But we know that there's another sort of key level up towards 5. We're happy to see how it goes up there and just see if we can extend this move up. Generally, what we call them is a volatility projection. So the volatility of that up, it's had a bit of a pullback, corrected, build a high low, take it from the higher low, and then just project that up, see where it takes you, and see that could be an initial target if you're just trying to pick something out. And a lot of times it does coincide with a resistance level or support level, and sometimes it falls a few cents short. You could probably guess that, give it a chance just to touch on that resistance, because a lot of times I'll just extend that move up. It gets a bit more stretched and it touches right on resistance or wash it out and then rolls over. But we know just by looking at that, ORE could still have quite a bit to go. It's looking good either way. Looking great. What else we got? I think that's probably, we don't have a lot on at the moment. It was a new one with ANZ, ORE, DCM. So we talked about all of them. I was going to touch on MAs and probably looking at this one here, BNO. I was just speaking to someone before about MAs, moving averages, and how to, not naming names, and this is something I've had a few little problems with in the past, is trying to second guess the market, which means, you know, you've had a good run up, you're thinking this is, say you're thinking this is extended, for example, you're trying to short it in here. You may be right for a little bit, but then it turns around and wallops you on the way back out again. So you're trying to guess the top, pick a top or pick a bottom. In this respect, if you're trying, this is starting to trend higher, we're trying to pick a top. If we're thinking it's extended here, you may have chosen it just in here, for example. Actually, let's just draw this up properly. Just going to talk about exponential moving averages for anyone that doesn't know. Just want to quickly touch on it as a bit of a, who uses EMAs or even, what are they called? Simple moving averages, SMAs, with their trading to help them keep on the right side of the market. If you don't, I think it's a handy little tool, and this is, I've really found that when we talk about shoulders, it's very handy in finding shoulders to trade off, especially when you know what the underlying structure is. So if we just go and draw this up, for instance, if I was drawing it through here, which I like to do, contraction lower, we know we've got a nice little support base. We've come off this higher low. There could have been a nice little trade there, but it hasn't broken through out of this contraction, so it could have easily turned around and head south again, washed us out. What I like to do really is using MAs to, you know, it's broken out of contraction up here with this leg up. It's pulled back, and then you're looking at the MAs. MAs are crossed up. It's a good little reversion to the mean, and then you've got your potential little entry just through here, inside entry, looking for another leg up, and potentially that leg is going to be, which it did turn out to be pretty much. That's the way, you know, I like to use MAs, and you're looking for the shoulder trade. And what we call shoulders is really, once you start getting MAs in your favor, it's starting to trend you earlier on that trend potentially, and putting all the price action and price structure on your favor, like this major double bottom. A lot of people washed out of the market here. It's starting to lift again. It's broken up out of contraction with this little kick up here, contracting back, just back down again from that leg up, washing a few of these buyers back out of the market, and then it goes again for the second trade. And we're looking at this as a shoulder trade, and the MAs is a really nice sign. Now, if those MAs were down, it's probably hard to see. I should really try to find out an example. There's nothing really down here. Say, for example, that, you know, you've got this move down, a secondary move down, a pop up. It's a pullback. You've got potentially that high low building a bit like this. The MAs are down. It's a bit tougher to take a trade off that, and you haven't got the price structure backing it. So a lot of the times I probably wouldn't take that because the MAs are not on the right side. There's times when you can, and there's times when it's probably a bit tougher. So I like to use the MAs as a bit of a guide for, I use a simple. Oh, that's cool. So I like to use them as a guide, you know, and if you just stick to a general rule of thumb, I don't know how you trade yours, Helen, but I like my 20 and my 50. I like the 20 above the 50 for a buy and look for a shoulder, and reversed, you know, the 20 below the 50 moving average for a sell. And again, just looking for a shoulder, and I'll obviously analyze the price structure that's gone before it just to see, is there enough people got out of the market to jump in for me to go long, as in this case. And then just look for the entry. From there, it's just a simple case of, this for me would have been a beautiful little entry, you know, on this little move through here. So, and that, you know, double bottom, it's pushed up out of contraction, your first pullback, you're buying into your first pullback, and it started to lift. You're touching your MAs, always a nice little sign. I think Davin spoke about this in one of the presentations we did a while ago. That reversion to the mean type of trade, you're holding your MAs, It's just showing good strength. And again, it's done the same type of thing through here where we bought it. You got this pop up, a pull back to the MAs. The MAs are heading higher. You're potentially looking for that zone. You don't know where it's going to turn out, but you're looking for that zone where it's giving you a buy entry. And for me, that was just through there. At that stage, you've got this contraction lower, holding a minor high low, and that's confirmed on a pop-up through there, through 46. We bought it, whacked up through those highs. So at the moment, we're contracting a bit now, but that's a nice thing to use the MAs. And that way, for me, like I said, I had a bit of a problem with trying to sell it, especially on the futures, trying to sell against the flow of the market. Now, I think like we were chatting before with a friend, just that a lot of the times, okay, you sell it, and if you can average up or down, that's fine. I mean, it's going to get you out of trouble sometimes, but then you might be risking 10 points to make 2 in the end because you averaged yourself out of trouble. But what happens when it starts trending and you run out of cash and you take a massive hit? That's why you don't want to go try to pick a top or a bottom. If you know exactly where your risk is, I mean, if you sell it here and you sell it off this little shoulder through here, for instance, you've got to realize what market you're in and you know where your risk is, and you've got to be very, how do you say, disciplined with your risk management and get back out again. So, but then your probability of this working out to be a good trade is very, very low. So what you're really doing is putting yourself against the flow of the market, against the probability of a good trending day. And you're really increasing the probability that you're going to get smacked every now and then, especially if you don't use stops and if you average and all that sort of stuff. So I think getting on the right side of the MAs when they're starting to lift and just looking for that shoulder is the best tactic. This sort of stuff, when the MAs are flat, it's a good guide too that, okay, this is not really trending. This is probably either finding a base, it's consolidating, it's range trading. But what it can do by just leaning on those MAs is really keeping you out of trouble. Or is attempting to keep you out of trouble anyway. I think the only thing that's going to keep you out of trouble is you when you're trading. Does that make sense, guys, with those little MAs? I thought it was just a nice little topic to touch on. How do you use your MAs, Helen? The 8 crosses the 200, or do you just try to be on the top side of the 8 MA to buy and bottom side to sell, or? I'll just wait for it to catch up. Anyway, that was probably... I'll just see if Helen writes back to me. Does that make sense there? Before we get into... We've got a couple there from Wayne, so feel free to put in some more charts if you want, or even if it's something that you think could have been a good example of a shoulder trade, just whack it in and we'll analyse it. I'll see if there's anything else. That's actually a really nice one. I like that setup. That was a great setup for us. Really do like that, and you can see that starting. It's lifted off a nice level. Was that? That's BNO. What's ORE look like? All right, here's just what I said before. I like this is ORE. Let me just go back to the weekly, and this is where you got to analyze a bit further. You know, I just said, well, if anyone's watching, sorry. Anyone remembers just what I was saying about buying when the MAs are heading higher? And sometimes it's not prudent, but sometimes it could really work well, and it's got to do with the price structure. When you're buying when the MAs are actually down, but they look like they're coming in. This was a prime example of what we did here. This was through ORE, buying it with this push up through, I think it was 45 we bought it. Let me just check on that. Yeah, 345. So we bought it with this push up through this little high. Now, the MAs weren't, or probably just about the cross. I was on this red candle and it popped up, got us in, finished lower for the day, but the MAs weren't rising by then, so you weren't really buying it into a trending market higher. But what it's got to do with is the overall price structure, and it's probably a tad harder to see on this daily chart. But if you go back to the weekly, you can see, even if we just go back a bit more data, the reason why we like this trade, let's get that, and it was worthwhile taking it and just going against the MAs was purely because of the weekly. The weekly looks so good. It's paid out quite nicely. So you've got this massive support zone through here, and then you can see this, once it started kicking up through this high, it got up through here, contracted lower, tried to get a bit lower, pulled up short of that massive support at about $1, I think it was. And you had this good strong leg up, and you've had this one washout, pop up, tried to get up to the highs, couldn't do it. Another big washout. But what I liked on this weekly chart, after this big strong leg up, this is a decent leg down, and it was a good actual bounce, pretty much right up to the highs again. And then when we did wash out the lows, there wasn't really much wash out at all. It didn't go all the way lower, which you would expect it to be if it's a really weak market. And then we started getting this pop up again. Okay, at that stage, we probably could expect another major leg lower, but then it fell short. Okay, and it was starting to lift again, and it fell short. So that for me was a great little zone of a higher low. So if you go back down to the daily, and that's at $3, that higher low, down to the daily. Oh, I've got to get a bit better. That's through here, and you can see that. So you know that on the weekly chart, we're starting to hold. We had this washout through 3 here, pop back up, pull back. We retested 3. We can't get down to the lows. We're looking like we're going to hold a higher low, and it was a nice clean chart. So it was a really good opportunity, you know, to buy against the MAs. Does that make sense in that example? Because then even if I'm wrong and I'm just looking for that one leg up, pull back, and I'm looking for that second leg up, even if it's a really weak market, there's a lot of fat in this trade, and there already is. We've taken a partial off at 4, and we're looking for that potential move up to 470, 80, 90, that zone. We just have to watch how it goes from here. But as in risk return, that was great. It's really worthwhile taking, just even if you know that this market probably could still be rolling over. No weekly trend levels broken. You know, there's a key level up here, say 475. Even if this contracts, build a lower high at 450, and then rolls over and has a major correction again. You know, we've still taken it from the daily in context of what's happening. Took that little trade there off this inside higher low, off a major high low, and everything worked out quite nice. So there is times when you just got to be wary of what the overall price structure is and what people could be doing. And there is going to be times when you're going to go against the MAs. But, you know, if it didn't cross really here and we struggled here and started rolling over, I'm not risking too much either. I'm risking, you know, it was 20 cents. Get stopped out, so be it. You try again. But as it played out, it's gone really nice. All right, enough of the babbling. Anything you want to put in? Chuck it in the chat and we'll get into it. We'll look at AGL first. Have you got anything on these, Wayne, at all? We've got AGL, WPL, and Nuffy. Now, first things first, that doesn't look too bad. And just, I guess this is one way. The few things I really look at when I'm looking at the charts instantly is, okay, what's happened from left to right? It's had a good leg up. That to me is contraction because it's had a push down, a lower high here. It's pushed down through the lows, pushed a lower low. But this is just stair-stepping action on the way down. It's nothing strong. And in context of this leg up, we have to go back to the weekly, obviously, before. But this is still contracting lower with the key level, I think, around that 26 mark, that key lower high. So longer term, I'd rather see it pop up there, at least retest there, maybe wash it out, and then I'm looking for that higher low. So I wouldn't buy it off this higher low just here, because that's still in context of that contraction. It hasn't broken out of the contraction yet. Hasn't even showed a clear sign that it's breaking out of that contraction. And again, we're going against the MAs, and that's nowhere near as strong as the one we just talked about previously. Does that make sense? And we've got, with this little push up here, that's starting to get extended on the upside, and it's not near the anchor level to this move down, so it's worthwhile just watching to see what happens. So looking at the weekly, you know, you go back a step on the weekly chart, that's this good solid leg up, so there might be more contraction, or maybe we need to wash out more people. We've also had this move up from right down to, say, about $12, $12.55. So this move down is this move up. Had a bit of a pullback, and we had a stronger move up. So there's probably a bit of heat to come out of this market still. If not, the very least, what we want to see is it pop up and start holding some serious higher lows. And I'd rather see, if we just draw it up quickly, on that one, on AGL, is, and that's why I always like to put my lines across the tops there, because it can easily roll over from here. But if you start, you know, pushing up through this high, it doesn't even if it just retests that 26 mark, just retest, it's a good sign that it's starting to push up out of contraction, that contraction lower, or that channel lower, whatever you want to call it. And then from there, it's a simple case. It pushes up. Want to see a high-low build, and then there's potentially a trade on from there as buyers start to step in at higher prices, looking for that move up to potentially 28.50 and above. I think for now, for me, AGL's got a bit of work to do. Let's just go on to WPL. One step back, where are we on the monthly? So it's a good sort of Woodside, yeah, they've copped a beating for a while now. Anything to do with oil, and I think it's still struggling that monthly. This could roll out. Just as, I know this is a very long-term chart, and people don't believe too much in looking at longer-term charts, but there's still longer-term players, still longer-term levels, just to take note of, and there's a longer-term trend down, and that's all got to do with psychology of traders. Me, for example. So you get this push down. This to me is really just contraction of this move down. So if we just mark that up, what sort of key levels we're going to look at? I think this Woodside and sort of these oil ones have got a lot of work to do for me before we start doing anything. So get a clearer picture of that. And you can see that. So I've got this move down. So when we break that down, we've had this move down, sort of contraction low. We've got probably a rough key level through here, 37. And that's led us to lower highs, lower lows. Then we started pushing up. And just by drawing up across the lows, then you can start to see this is a potential, another major lower high. And in context of this, it's only had that one move down, popped back up, built a lower high in here, and extended that move down all the way down to 23. Didn't really come too close to the anchor. You know, it was getting overbought, and look at those stochastics too. That's your divergence there. Popped up to 34, broken down through here. So, you know, ideally longer term, you could be just looking for, we've had that move up there, that breakdown. We could be looking for that lower high, and whether we're going to go back down and test there, or there's going to be a bit more contraction, we get a bit lower. So from here, I personally wouldn't go near this just yet on the weekly anyway. The weekly's not looking so strong. Even that daily, the MAs are pointing down. Wait till they start to come in. It starts to holding a higher low. This is nowhere near it on the daily either. For me, could be a short even, to be honest. To be brutally honest. Which way are you thinking on this, Wayne? I just saw your comment, Enendo. Look at that, your double top. That's after breaking out of that contraction, that's your weekly move up. We're breaking down. We sort of had this good wash just recently. That's your first sort of leg, or maybe even to here. Pop up, wash out here. There's a potential that we're going to have a secondary move down from there. Yeah, that's sort of choppiness through there, the consolidation, holding a minor lower high. The MAs are coming a bit. They're starting to potentially roll over again. That's not a good sign. So if we go down through, look, there could be an easy short in this one. Go down through that, say, 28.50, this little, you can see this candle here. Let's just draw that. This little candle in here. If you go down below that, push down below the low, you know exactly where your risk is basically going to be above that high low. You're not risking too much, and the potential for that to accelerate down to 26, say 26.50 or so, you've got a 3-to-1 trade just there on the short side at least. So I'm biased to the short side just on this one until it proves otherwise. It starts potentially holding in here, bounce back up. You want to see a good move up before you start going long. Enough. Let's get into enough. Oh, let's go back to the weekly. So again, that just by glancing at that, you've had this push down, high lows, high highs. Then we've had this major lower high in here, which has led to this move down to 830. This is contraction here. It doesn't leave me too positive that the market's going higher. And it's because of the nature. But so when you see the market's negative or positive, they tend to grind higher, but consistently. Even moves down, matched up with even lower highs. So when they move down, it's slightly different to a move up. Move ups tend to take a bit more time and a bit more control, whereas a move down can be harder and faster. This is quite a hard, fast move down. Move down to support. So then we're grinding higher again. So the MAs are down. We may have another dip lower, build a higher low, inside higher low, and then I'd potentially be looking for a long off that one. In saying that weekly trend's definitely up, isn't it? Oh, that's very interesting actually, and that's why you've got to go back a chart. Looking back a chart, you can see that they're two different things are showing a different picture. So just stepping back onto the weekly, I don't mind that weekly chart, to be honest. You know, that's sort of your trend higher. Pull back to the, not to the MAs, but back to the trend line. The MAs are still higher, even though it's pulled back. It's quite a deep correction at that stage. And then we started holding these higher lows. you know, working up out of contraction. We've had a good little correction back to that support zone there. The MAs are still up, so this has got the potential it could easily hold, but I'd rather see, you know, an inside, say a bit like this, is a good pullback like we've got there, kick up, maybe we're going to kick up a bit higher, then this pullback and an inside high low build where I can work off, and then that's market's contracting, but it's holding higher lows, it's with the trend, you're going with the trend, and seeing if that can break out of that contraction and really start a new leg higher. So you're ideally trying to pick the time where you don't have to waste too much time sitting around, you know, sitting on your hands just waiting for it to move, whether you're going to be right or wrong. You want to get to the tail end of that contraction when the start of a move up, so you're not wasting your time, you know, just with your capital tied up. And that's the idea of picking those inside higher lows, potentially like, oh, that's not a very good line, potentially like just in here, or even in here. You had to wait a bit longer for this to play out and to move higher. What was a good, probably a couple of months there. But looking at that, the weekly, we are potentially in a nice zone to buy it up, but the daily's not looking so clean to me. And the reason I say that is just because of the last few weeks of movement. It could roll over. There's no reason why it can't roll over, and we start breaking down on a weekly basis. I'm not a big fan of buying into this type of price action. You can see it hasn't taken out the highs much, pull back, you know, deeper, so that there's still some selling strength in there. We're not taking out these highs really. So that to me could chop up and then bang, we collapse. But because of the weekly chart, we may only collapse and build a higher low. We might find a bid, you know, some buyers, sorry. Try not to be too technical with my terms. If you don't understand the terminology, guys, just whack it into the chat. I tend to whip out a few terms that I've learnt over the years. We may just wash out some of this buying in here, wash it out, you know, fall short of that, a double bottom at 840, might find some buyers stepping a bit higher at 860, start soaking it up. So you sort of get this type of price action, come down, retest there off that support, and then start to lift. And that way you've got this inside double bottom, inside high low, and we potentially start holding in. You can find a little inside high low to work off for a new leg higher. And that could be a nice strong leg up, which could take us, you know, right up to those highs if the weekly is going to be is going to play out strong. Does all that make sense, guys? Is it, do you believe me, Wayne? Do you agree? Anyway, what do we got here? We've got Nendel next. So we are 45 minutes. All right. If anyone saw that, it was just my wife popping in. Just got to read the note. All right, that's cool. So what do we got here, Nendo? We got POS. Start with that one. Poseidon. That's interesting. It's been a very strong trend down, and you can see these moves up and being met with solid selling. Been a good bounce. That's probably more if anyone's been shorting there or just trying to buy it up. You know, either way, you've got to go down to the weekly, I'd say. And I wouldn't buy it just yet, but it's looking like... Oh, that's not what I want. It's looking quite good. If you just go down to... We just want to see where it's going to in context to the previous low. Look, it's had that move down, a good solid move up, then come all the way back down really to this, and it didn't take out that low a hell of a lot. And it's done the same thing, had a sudden move up, then it's edged its way down. So it's just, anyone who's sort of bought it up there and started to hold it, or even in here, it's been grinding them back out of the market, taking out the lows. So in saying that, this thing could sooner have a spike up and still hold, you know, it may spike up and still hold a major high low, I don't know what, you know, spike up at like this, high low in context to these ones. You can still get a good little trade under your belt, but you've got to be just keep in mind what's happening on the weekly chart, because that weekly is not strong. It's still heading south. I mean, of course, where's it going to go to? It hasn't got much farther it can go. So just going down to the daily, just keep bearing all that in mind. We're starting to hold a higher low in here, grinding our way up. We've only just got through that high at 350. Be interesting to see what happens from here. Whether it can, let's just get that last 6 months. If I was going to buy it, I want a deeper correction off this one, just because of that weekly chart. I want to see it do a bit more work on the daily, and we are extended to the upside here. I mean, like I said, I don't look at news too much. I don't know what's happening. I don't really worry about that. I'll worry purely about price action. So if this is a good strong move up, and that's met by a decent correction lower before we got to a potential higher low, if this is the same thing, because we're up overbought territory here before we started grinding our way back down again, I don't know. We could just, we can come all the way down to 2.5 cents before we start getting this high low build, or we just hold a high low in here and then go. But the way that it hasn't pushed through that previous highs to before we got this down candle today, pushed up, opened down, we've head down today, could be a bit of contraction. That then it's worth keeping an eye on from down the track, because it is so low too, and that weekly could start to take off. It's got some good news back in it. Could be one that's going to move fast, hard and fast anyway. GPP, what do we got there? Right, probably forget about this price action too much, what's happened in the past. Come all the way back down to less than 50 cents before it took off through 4 cents. Washed out 4, and we've edged our way lower again. So a lot of these smaller cap ones could really pull right back. So you just got to be wary if you're going to try to pick a bottom. That's why I'm always happy to go for higher low. I'm happy to give up something for a higher probability trade if it can kick up. Exactly right, Nando. I mean, there's so many opportunities where the weekly is just grinding lower, but the daily, there's a lot of opportunity on the daily chart. Just getting in the right spot. So if you can get in the right spot, fantastic. That was one I think Helen mentioned a while ago. She was looking at, the one that gapped down, Helen. But buying it on the gap down when you get a little setup, you just got to realise if it's gapped down, it's weak, but there's still opportunity on the upside to buy into. But just be any sort of sign of weakness, bail, lock in your profits. When the weekly trend is actually going up, that's where you just want to try to open up your trade a bit more and see how much you can pull out of it. So, I mean, even on this one's grinding lower. This sudden move, that's what you want. And if you can get that sudden, a couple of strong days, and you know you're on the right side of the market and you're bought into it, potentially off this little high low, you're going to have to, it's just all about entry, really. The entry starts around here and you get this, let me just draw. And that's why I'm always, like I said, always looking for a high low. I don't like buying, if the market's pushing down, just doing this. I don't like to buy in here before I see something like that. I'd rather buy, I know I've got my high low in place, but if I haven't, take 2 steps back, if I buy here and bang, it goes down, you don't know where it's going to go to from there. Sorry. That's unusual. Got a name coming up. I've never really heard of it, but we'll see. So yeah, like I was saying, if you're buying without, I don't know how anyone trades their setups. I mean, everyone knows my setup. I'm looking for that higher low. That's just that early sign that the buyer's going to step in, especially after this move down. Then yeah, exactly what you said there, Nando. This could just kick up and go boom. Well, with the setup, of course, when you got your setup just in here. Let's just take that back. We get this little pop up. You get them high low, and then bang, we just get this type of move up. That's awesome. I'm happy to give up that, then try to pick a bottom, and then just realize that, okay, it's gone, probably pulling, even if it goes to 4 or so, then you're doing great. Realizing that the weekly trend still hasn't changed. You're buying off a high low, everything's working out, book some gains, sit back and wait again. What was the other one there? FBR. I've looked at FBR. I can't remember what the chart is like. That's a different story, isn't it? This is what, you can ask Dav and myself, we love seeing. You've got, look at this, 4 years, for example, fast break. What was it? Missed out on a trade. I think we actually went to alert this, just missed out, which is, it happens. But back to the weekly, this is what we love in the weekly chart. When you've got, see all this time it's spent a good couple of years, 2014, 15, 16. And it's only the mid to end of 2016 where it started lifting. And then it contracted back down into, yeah, yeah. I've got heaps of stories like that. There's one I'm looking at now, CAN. I think we talked about it before. Sold that way too early. Went up another 40 cents, but it's back to roughly where I got out anyway. So still opportunity though. You can't go wrong booking a gain though, I guess. But with this one, that weekly chart looks good. So you got that initial pop up, and a lot of the times when it's spent so much time, you've got to take into account how much time it's spent doing nothing. And if people have been watching this and they get a bit excited here and it contracts a bit lower, that secondary move when people think, okay, I've missed out on this one. If this goes, it could go hard, and a lot of the times it really does go hard. And then you hold on the longer term basis. You're holding this higher low. We can see that on the weekly. Was that it? 7.5, isn't it? Yeah. So this is your high low through here on the weekly. Is that right? Yep. So this is your high low. When they start thinking they're going to miss out on this move up, it's going to be a good move. Even if it's just that same type of move up, then they tend to go harder and faster than what you expect. Certainly more than what I expect, a bit harder than what I expect anyway. But that there was a great little, you're coming off this major, few years of really doing nothing. It's had a kick up for whatever reason, and it's had this good consolidation pullback, wash out a lot of these late buyers. And the late buyers, I mean, when it's on this vertical green candle, probably just in here these last few days, washed out a lot of these guys that just got out of the market, maybe just waiting again, or got a bit antsy, chased the market up, and then got scared and got back out of it. Then it started holding a higher low, ideally in here. Fantastic. It was hard to buy. I think there was no real setup for us, but it would have been nice to have this push up through this high low, just in here. But that's great, and look where it went to. Where'd you actually get out, Nendor? Or where'd you get in and get out? Can I ask? Or because that there, just looking at that, the wind in your sails, so to speak, with your weekly trend, that's great because it's starting to lift in on a weekly trend, and you're getting this weekly high low. So you're trying to buy into that weekly high low somewhere where you're looking for another weekly move higher and just trying to capitalize on that, not risking too much at all. You can really get some great risk-reward returns on that. And that's ideally what I'm always trying to look for. Rather than contraction on the weekly, when it's heading down, you're just looking for that bounce, so you've got to be a bit more nimble when you're getting out. But this one, as we speak here, it's... let's just go... This one here, let's just go and draw that up. There is still opportunity if we can see the right setup. There's a lot of reasons. Got that weekly trend higher. We had that leg up, blew out the top there, held, consolidation back, boom, straight back up again. It's washed out the high again. Geez, this is why you always look back on what's happened in the past. Wash out here before contraction, wash out those highs, contracted right back again. The MAs are heading high. You wouldn't go anywhere near this on the sell side just yet. We're in a prime zone just here. You can see the stochastics too. You've got your divergence if you look at that. It's quite a bit of selling pressure down here, and we are nowhere near the anchor. We're still holding that uptrend. So there's a lot of factors saying to me where this could be in a prime zone, just to keep an eye on that. The only thing, and this is how I always try to look for what is the potential, is this a high potential, low potential trade? It's had one leg up. You've had your secondary, if we just draw that in different colors. We've had that one leg up here. We've had a secondary leg up here. We're going to go for, we want to see if there's going to be a third leg up. If there's not, we could get a lower high. Okay, so we're banking on that the chances that it's going to be, it's a lower probability when you've already done two moves to the upside. Lower probability that we're going to blast through those highs at 30 and go again. I mean, there's no reason why we can't, obviously. The weekly trend is still looking good. But you're starting to get it, you're looking towards, you're asking the market to extend the move up already on a weekly basis. So it's good to keep that in mind. There's no reason why it can't. Obviously, we're putting ourselves in the fact, and we want to see obviously a setup where we've headed down, popped up, maybe a bit of contraction, and then you get your high low. You know exactly where your risk is. You got your setup. It does it here, pops up. If it starts running out of steam between 27, 29, you've still got something in the tank. You got some profit potentially booked. You can go to break even on the trade and just see what happens. If you get stopped out, so be it. If not, if it goes on with it, great. That's what you want. Does that make sense what I'm just saying there? I think it's in a prime position just in here, potentially for another leg higher, but you just got to keep in mind of how many legs it's had up. It's not as high a probability as say something like in here or even at the start of this move up. It's not as high a probability, but there's still a trade in it. It could still easily be a trade in it. Good work. Almost. You take Fridays off, don't you, Helen? Anything else, guys? There's probably a fair bit of info there to digest, but again, it's just, I guess it's breaking down a trade, breaking down what could or couldn't happen, looking at probabilities, and then, you know, once you've got your setup and you're in, it's just about managing your risk. That's all you've got to worry about. And we could all manage it. We all do different things, but as long as you do it consistently, I guess. If I can escape. Me too. All right, guys, let's we'll probably call it a day there. If there's nothing else you want to quickly look at, I think that was pretty much, we covered everything, didn't we? Yep. If there's nothing else you want to quickly look at, then yeah, we'll call it a day. The market's up 43, still grinding our way higher. Have to see what happens from here. See if the US topples over tonight, if they grind higher, what we do tomorrow. The last few weeks, I think there's been a few weeks in a row, we had Mondays were open down and bounce back, so sometimes we could be maybe open up today and then the next few days we spend heading south. We'll have to see what happens. BGA. It's that Bega cheese, isn't it? Yeah, well, that's a nice looking chart, really. Sort of. This is a tougher one for me to think. It's probably my personal... Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. They come in anywhere from 3s to about 10. All right, so just quickly on this one, this is we get all the data. We had this push up, consolidation, a bit of a wash out the lows, sudden move up to $8, all the way back down and test that low. So I'd rather work off a major higher low than just buy it. I think we're starting to get a bit long in the tooth in that move up, and we're coming up in that resistance, like you said, around the $8 mark, $7.50 to $8, where might find a bit of resistance. So on the weekly chart anyway. And it's just this double bottom. If this is a strong market, I would have expected it from here. Push up off this high low rather than tank like it did here for whatever reason. Just keep going and take out that high. I'm just sort of waiting. I would be watching this for a potential major correction, but you know, it's the way I trade it, but we'll see. Yeah, what did it do this morning? What's the daily? Yeah, it's just struggling up here, isn't it? And if you probably go measure that leg up, it's probably from low to high here. From low to high here, we're probably starting to get a bit extended. Just if that's what it does, you know, big consolidation here, move down. We popped out through the highs to hit 7, contraction back lower, back to the MAs, and we started lifting again. If you just extend that out, it's probably getting a bit long in the tooth just up here. If that's the case, and the weekly starts becoming a lower high, then okay, we could be heading south for a while. And then you'd have to sit around and wait to see what happens. But still, that doesn't look too bad at this stage. It's just whether it's getting a bit extended up here. Is there more selling coming to the market? But we'll see. All right, call it a day there, guys. But thanks very much for joining me. It's been great. We will be back in on Thursday. Feel free to pass the word if you think anyone could make use of what we do in the streams. And any questions you may have, feel free to send them through on an email to support@tradesetup.com.au. If there's any chart that you want to have a look at, well, feel free to send through a chart, mark it up, and if you've got any questions on anything at all. But yeah, send it through and then we'll analyse it in the stream. Thanks for joining us, guys. We will speak to you again on Thursday at 12:30. Cheers. Bye.